Okay, it looks like we're good to go.
All right, call the meeting to order at 5:33. We'll start with the auditor's report from Bramwell and Ackley. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys for having us. I'm Stephanie Hune, and Kristen Berger is on the Zoom meeting tonight as well. Kristen and Courtney, they completed the audit at the library back in the fall. Trimble County Library was one of just a handful of audits last year that we were actually able to go on site for. A lot of our audits had to be done remotely because of COVID, but we were able to come out and we issued our audit report back in January. I'm going to share my screen and go through that with you this evening. If you have any questions, Kristen and I are happy to answer those for you guys. Can everybody see that okay? So this is the library's financial statement for the year ended June 30, 2020. The auditor's report is our expression of an opinion on these financial statements. This report is standard. It'll outline what management is responsible for, and that is presenting and preparing the financial statements in accordance with accounting principles accepted in the United States. Our responsibility as the auditor is to express an opinion on the financial statements in accordance with U.S. auditing standards as well as government auditing standards. So it describes here some of the procedures we complete during an audit, and that we believe the evidence we obtain during our audit work allows us to express an opinion. The paragraph here at the top states that that we believe that the financial statements, our opinion is the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. The financial position of the governmental activities of the Trimble County Public Library as of June 30, 2020, and the changes in the financial position for that year in accordance with U.S. accounting principles. So that's an unmodified or a clean audit report opinion on your financials for last fiscal year. And also the following paragraph is mentions the required supplementary information that is included in all governmental audits. That includes the management's discussion and analysis, budgetary comparison information, and schedules required for the pension and OPEB, other post-employment benefits. That's the health insurance benefits for library employees once they retire. All of those required disclosures and information presented are required, but it's not normal in an audit that we express an opinion on that information. It's just part of the financial statement. The management's discussion and analysis is a narrative overview. If you had a chance to read through this, it just kind of a short summary of the different financial statements included. Some financial highlights are that the library's net position at the end of the year was $2,737,000, and the fund balance was $1,466,000. In the MD&A, this is really the only place in your financial statements that you'll see a comparison of this fiscal year to the previous fiscal year. So this table here shows the net position. Your total assets at the end of 2020 were $3,512,000. Compared to the end of 2019, they were $3,391,000. The liabilities were $775,000 compared to $690,000 at the end of the previous year. So overall, your net position went up about $37,000. The change in net position, the revenues and expenses for the year. This year, they were $750,000 compared to $735,000 last year. And your expenses were $713,000 compared to $735,000 last year. So you had an increase, so like a net position of about $37,000. We go to the first statement here. This is your governmental fund balance sheet, as well as the statement of net position. So we're showing here the general fund. All of the activities of the library are reported and recorded in a general fund. It shows your total assets of 1,478,000, and that includes the cash, the investments, and the receivables, the tax revenue receivables, and a little bit of prepaid expenses. On the statement of net position, the difference between these two are your capital asset items. So the building, the book collection, any long-term assets that are capitalized and depreciated over their useful life. So those total 1,840,000 for your total assets on a statement of net position of 3.3 million. The government-wide or the statement of net position also includes deferred outflows and deferred inflows related to the pension and the OPEB. So those get added. So you have total assets and deferred outflows of 3.5 million. The liabilities section for the fund statements is very simple. It's your accounts payable and your current liabilities, total $12,000 at June 30th. You're required to add to that your long-term liabilities, which include the accrued compensated absences or PTO time for employees of about 15,000. But then the majority is the pension and the OPEB liability that is the Trimble County Library's share of the total county employee retirement system's unfunded pension. And these numbers are provided by the state. So it's 550,000 and 132,000. This next schedule or statement reconciles the fund balance on a governmental fund presentation of 1.4 to the total net position of 2.7. The major items that are different are those capital asset items that are not recorded on a fund basis and the long-term liabilities that are not recorded on a fund basis either, but they are required to be recorded in the government-wide statements. You look at your statement of revenues and expenditures, you have total revenues of 750,000. There's no adjustments or differences in the statements for revenues. But on the expenditure side, there is quite a bit of difference. Fund expenses were 593,000. This is how you primarily budget during the year, which you're going to receive and spend. But then for accounting purposes and government accounting standards, we have to adjust for the depreciation expense and the liabilities related to the pension cost. So that's where most of these items come into play. So on a fund basis, you had an increase in net position or net revenue of 157,000 last year. But after those adjustments, that went down to an increase of 37,000. And then this schedule just reconciles those two figures as well. The next few, you also include a schedule of expenditures. This gives you just a little bit more detail of the different expenditure line items on the statement of revenues and expenses, the personnel costs, the library materials, and all of your other expenses. A little bit more detail of those line items. And the next few pages are the notes to the financial statements. Note 1 or note A is always the significant accounting policies notes. This is standard. The accounting policies Trimble County Library follows are standard for all libraries and governmental entities. I'll point out on note B, the cash investments. The cash balance at the end of the year was 1,447,000. There was a small amount that was not secured by pledged securities. And that is something that we would recommend that the library just keeps track of and make sure either all of your cash and investments are fully secured through FDIC or other assets pledged by the bank. The capital assets shows the change, the additions and disposals during the year, and your net book value was 1,840,000. You have two notes, note F and note G on the employees pension plan and the post-employment benefits. They're very lengthy notes. Again, we highlight here that the library reported a liability of 550,000 for the pension plan. And that represents 0.00781% of the total unfunded plan balance for the county retirement system. So you can imagine other entities have much larger liabilities. The post-employment benefit, that was 131,000. A couple more notes on long-term liabilities. The only liability is the compensated absences that I mentioned. There is one or lease for some copiers that are held at the library. And then we go into the schedule of your actual revenues and expenses compared to budget. So this is useful information showing that you have budgeted 671,000. Actual revenues last year were 742,000, favorable by $72,000. And the expenses were also favorable by almost 75,000. So 671 was budgeted for expenses, and they actually came in at 596,000. So we saw this was pretty common for most June year ends, because in the last quarter, the second quarter of 2020, some programs got cut, things were not spent as planned because of shutdowns and such. These schedules are required for the net pension liability and the OPEB liability. This is kind of a historical chart. It shows from 2015 when you were required to start reporting this. The state showed your portion of the liability was 209,000. And then over the 6-year period, you can see it's more than doubled to 550,000. The library really has no control over this. You've always contributed what the state has calculated that you need to contribute to the retirement plan, and that's what's shown here. And then lastly, we have our report on internal control and compliance. So we express here the different types of deficiencies in internal control. The highest level of report that we can issue is stating that we did not identify any deficiencies that were material weaknesses during our audit. And that's what we've expressed here. And then secondly, on our test of compliance, we found no instances of non-compliance during the audit period. Anybody have any questions for us?
This might be a question for our accountant, but I'm not sure if you can answer or not. So how are libraries managing the pension liability? Do we need to create a fund for that just to make sure, can the state say, hey, this is much is due at this end of the year, lump sums, or how do we budget for that?
The state can always increase the percentage, or they can say you have to fund an additional amount, but they're not going to say that you have to, well, I can't say that they're not going to say, but it's not expected that they would say you have to pay this 550,000 right now. It's kind of like a future liability over many years that has to be paid out, and it's an accounting. It's required to be disclosed and reported in your financial statements. But at this point, the state legislator would know it's impossible for most organizations to fund that, in one fiscal year. Other libraries are millions and tens of millions for like the cities and the county governments. So I don't expect that. You certainly need to budget for what they're saying you need to pay for that year. And if you can save on other costs to increase your reserves, that's great. But I don't think you need to, budget to save that you're going to have to pay for that specifically at a certain.
Yeah, that's something that librarians have been talking about is, possibly having a large lump sum added quickly, having to pay that quickly from the budget. So hopefully that won't happen, but
yeah, I don't anticipate that it will.
it's good.
There's no guarantees.
It was really good working with both Stephanie and Kristen, and they did a really great job, and pleased that we're following laws and our audit came back favorably, so that's good.
We I especially appreciate your help, Dina, in answering our questions quickly, and it's always easy to work with. So I appreciate you and all your work you do.
You. So, does anybody else have any questions? Okay. Thank you guys so much for taking time out to meet with us tonight.
No problem. If questions come up, you guys can always reach out to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
All right, do we have an approval for the minutes from February?
I
It
can make
has
a
to be you,
motion.
Michelle.
Or me? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
A motion to approve the checklist and financial statement for February, or any questions you may have had.
So was I the only one that had funny looking printouts of that?
No,
Yeah,
Like,
No,
okay,
you want me to go ahead and just we can table that, and I can give you a better copy next month so you can see amounts and everything. Unless you
Yeah.
see,
yeah,
I looked at that this afternoon. I was like, oh man, that looks like I'm
You're
yeah,
messed up.
the first page of the actual register didn't show amounts. Is that what you're talking about, Michelle?
yes.
yes.
Yeah,
Well, there was more than just the first page, I thought.
Last month,
well, yeah, it is, but that was what caught my, I thought, I don't know what I'm really looking at, so.
I think it's a side by side. Page 1 and page 2 are like a continuance.
Is that, they're side by side? Yeah, okay.
last month it cut stuff off so you couldn't read all of it. This month it's too long, and so it's hard to read. So I will go ahead and adjust the parameters on the printer and everything and get a new copy, and we'll do both February and March next month. If that's okay with you guys. Okay.
Sure.
Alrighty. Do you want me to take over, Hannah? So our workforce grant is doing very well. The 3 of the 5 hotspots that we just added to our collections, they're circulating and working really well with JC, TC, Kentucky Works, helping people. And Sarah, our adult programmer, she is offering 1 to 2 educational and career focused programs each month. So I feel like we're meeting those requirements of the grant pretty well. I don't see any public here, so we've got a lot to cover, so I'm going to really skim over the monthly report. There's really not any official business to talk about or any laws or policies. So the KPLA conference is coming up March 24th through the 26th. There's some new certification rules and guidelines that we staff have been trained in, and we've gone over, and I'll meet with staff in April to just make sure that we're all on the same page with their education requirements and make sure that we've got that taken care of. Summer readings coming up, and I will be talking a lot more about that in the next few months. And I think that's about it. Does anybody have any questions from the monthly report? Went through that really fast. Okay. So currently we had hoped to extend hours last month, and as soon as we did that, we had to quarantine some staff members from exposure. Nobody was sick, thankfully. So it seems like we take 1 step forward and 5 steps backwards, and so we decided to hold off on extending those hours, especially on Saturdays, because we felt like it was going to really spread us thin, even if we had to keep quarantining. But we are hoping to get back to normal soon. Starting Monday, April 12th, we are going to extend hours. Going to open 9 to 6 on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then on Wednesdays, staff have requested that we do our meetings in the afternoon, our staff meetings in the afternoon, and like all the other business, the bank, the courthouse, they're closed. close afternoon. So they're like, it makes sense to be open when they're open, when people are in town doing their business. So if you're okay with those hours, we'd like to go forward with that.
Is that the 11 to 5 on Wednesday?
I changed it, actually. We're gonna go, yes, we're gonna go 9 to 1 on Wednesdays. And we added another hour on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. We're gonna go to 9 to 6 instead of, I think I had 10 to 6 on there. So.
Is this a permanent change? This 9 to 1 on Wednesday that we're looking at? Or is this just something for now?
We're thinking that when we go back to most full hours, that has, I've received so much positive feedback from staff, just being able to all be in the same meetings. And especially from our part-timers that sometimes get left out. I know Oldham County, they don't open on Tuesdays until 1 or 2 because they allow that morning time for all of their staff meetings. They're such a large branch. So if the board is okay with that, we would like
I
to.
would be curious to know the patrons when they come in. I understand it being convenient for staff in the afternoon. What do your numbers look like on Wednesdays? Is it busier in the morning or is it busier in the afternoon on Wednesdays? Are we missing some kids after school because we're closing before school is out and not giving those hours to those kids? You know, I noticed we had 11 to 5 to begin with, and I'm assuming you had the staff meeting in the morning to begin with. But as far as patrons coming in, foot traffic, are we seeing less in the afternoon and more in the morning on Wednesdays?
You know what? Let me check my cameras. That's a good question. Let me check my cameras, and I can get reports on Wednesdays and see what we can compare. And
Okay. I just hate missing the kids if they need it, and not. But I agree. The staff meeting, it sounds like a great thing, and like you said, having everybody in one room and on one page is great.
right,
But I don't want to do it at the detriment of our patrons either.
right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Another thing too is in the past we've had our story hour on Wednesday mornings too, and I mean we can change that day, you know, if we need to. But we're thinking we might lose some patrons in the mornings if we change that story hour time too. So we were like thinking about that. It's like, it's been hard. Like I keep going back and forth, which is better, you know?
It's not a problem to have that your patrons need you all day long, that you're that valuable. That's not a bad problem to have.
And do we stay open when everybody else is closed down so they can come and get notary services and, you know, or is it, they don't want to wait around until 12 or 1 when we open, you know, because they're going to come into town early to go to the courthouse and the bank. So we're trying, but we're gonna try and see if we can get negative feedback or from our community, and you know what, we'll reevaluate that in our staff meetings. I'll look at records and I'll talk to them and say, hey, we really got to have more traffic in the afternoon or morning. We probably but we do need that time for staff meetings. But that's a good point. Okay, so we need to look at the circulation and lending policy. I know you guys are thrilled about that. I know I am. And I'm going to share my screen so we can hopefully stay all on the same page. Julianne, can you give me?
I just did. You should have it. Co-host.
You guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So on page, so this is I combined some policies. Ooh, that's not cooperating. It's wanting to go crazy on me. Okay. So there are several policies combined in this. Some of the pest control policy that pertains to patrons that actually, items that patrons actually check out. And also the hotspot policy was combined in this too. So this is all things that leave the building. Items that are in red and underlined were added. Things that are in yellow and crossed out there, I want to take out of the policy. So scroll down. So I think the first change is on page, like page 5. So we would like to add the part about student cards. I'd like to work more with the school and issue student cards for to students who don't have a lot of support at home or can't get to the library. We would put a cap of 5 items. They wouldn't be able to check out movies or equipment. Does anybody have any questions about that line item, student cards? Okay. We also have been using digital library cards, and this simply means that they're not able to check out physical items from the library, but they do have access to KYVL, Overdrive, Hoopla. These cards are usually given to patrons who are maybe an out-of-state visitor who's just here for a couple weeks, or somebody who has lots of fines and fees and they've been blocked from checking out. Anybody have any feedback or concerns about that? Okay. Under home delivery, we just needed to clarify that this is a service that's provided on a limited basis and is subject to the availability of staff, and that a schedule for deliveries will be updated regularly to meet customers' needs. That's just a clarification on that. Okay. Oh gosh. Julianne, why does that keep doing that?
I am not sure.
It like scrolls and just gets away from me. Looks like I don't know how to use a mouse.
Try clicking once.
Oh, oh. That's why Julianne is our tech service coordinator. Okay, so this is the chart that we updated. All of this, most of it is new. And you guys have your copy in front of you. I don't want to read everything out loud. We wanted to make sure that things were more uniform, fees were more uniform. Biggest thing is we reduced the number of items that books and things that people could check out. I think we had like 60 or 70 items. We reduced that. Our fiction DVDs, we increased the amount of time that people could have them from 1 week to 2 weeks. And we also increased from 3 to 6. We doubled that. And I believe that was the biggest change on that. Reading through those charges and checkout periods, does anybody have any suggestions on edits or changes? Oh, Michelle. Got a little buddy.
Sorry, we've got our grandson today, and I keep turning my head, so I apologize.
You're totally fine. You looks like a good helper. All right, and then
See what's going on.
And then I would like to give the director just discretion to change this in case of emergencies situations. All right. So under DVD guidelines, it talked about copyright policies. That is actually covered in our copyright policy in a different policy. It doesn't need to be included in this, so I'd say get rid of it. Our cash deposit for non-replaceable items line of that description there is not ever used. I've never used it since I've been here, and Betsy said they've never used it when she was in the last 5-10 years. So I'd say let's just get rid of it. Let's see. Under renewing items, I want to add under emergency situations, renewals may be used at the discretion or issued at the discretion of the assistant director or director. That just gives us a little bit more permission to act without having to go to the board for little things like that. The late fees, all of the late fees are already addressed in the chart above, so we can get rid of those. All right. This next item right here, suspension of borrowing privileges due to damage from pests. this is transferred word from word from our pest control policy into this section right here. Nothing was changed. So, anybody have any questions about the pest control policy? Okay. Confidentiality, that's all addressed in our confidentiality policy. It doesn't need to be restated in this. So I'm trying to trim the fat here so we're not contradicting policies and changing things in one and not another. And then our hotspot and lending laptops lending policy, we just created this. So for our hotspot. So what I did, rather than creating a laptop policy, we changed the language to include hotspots and laptops because they're so closely aligned. They just, you know, they'll be checked out the same with the same borrowing conditions, the same fines, the same amount of time, that kind of thing. The only thing that we did add was with proper care and use down the bottom. Do not save files to laptops. Do not delete or download any programs or software. And then we addressed the filtering software issue that patrons should not override filtering software. Okay. Is there any questions or concerns about changes that I would propose?
Looks good to me.
I make a motion
Looks
to
good to
approve the
me.
circulation policy.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Seconded it.
Michelle seconded.
Yes.
So we had some problems with our HVAC system, which I'm like, dang it, we almost through the year, but we had some copper pipes leaking. And of course, all of our refrigerant leaked. And I asked him about that. He's like, you know, is there something that we can be looking for so that we can stop that? And because that's the expensive part of repairs is replacing that refrigerant. And he said, probably not. He said that the system is so efficient that when it senses a problem in another area, it compensates. So by the time that it errors on our thermostat, that 3/4 of the refrigerant is already gone. So by the time you get a repair person there to fix it, you're done. So they fixed the leak, and then my office also had some extra parts that needed to be replaced. So we haven't received the bill on that. So I'm guessing it's going to be hefty, just because we had to replace the refrigerant. The flashing around the chimney is leaking, and finally found a roofing company that will come do it for less than $1,500. And Advantage Roofing out of Louisville is going to come and do all the caulking. And there we have some leaking rain gutters. They're leaking at the seams. They're going to seal those as well. So hopefully they'll be there in the next week or two. I reached out to starting to concentrate on the playground a lot more. And I talked to an excavator this last week, and we went over the property, and this is what he suggested. Can you guys see the picture of the playground?
No, we could. There we go.
Okay, let's see. I don't know if I can make that any bigger or not. So, okay. So here's our shed right here. This yellow arrow right here, that is a chain link fence that the cemetery has put in, the city's put in. And then I drew this line right here going this way towards the parking lot. This is where the property really starts to slope drastically. So we can't do anything with that. There's a drainage pipe right here that ties that, we believe, into our rain gutters, and it drains over here as well in this area. The excavator said that we have this little rocky area right here that is, we probably need to do something with that, possibly put in an underground tube and pipe it out this direction rather than this direction, so it's not going into any pavilion or playground area. We also have this, he identified another problem area with drainage. We'd probably put another underground tube in here too and direct it out this way so it would empty into this drainage system over here. So that leaves just a few places to put things. So there's this, the largest spot would be here for a playground. It would need to do some leveling, some digging. And then there's 2 areas over here. Right here could be hopefully a 24 by 24 pavilion, or right here next to the parking lot. These X's right here are were marked as, I think LG&E has some utility right here that we need to avoid. So, but it's frustrating because this is the most level part right here, and it would be the most, makes sense to build because you wouldn't have to do any work to it. And there's LG&E right here. But we love LG&E. I'm not going to talk about it, but it's you talk bad about it. It's just right in the middle of this perfect level spot. So that's going to be an expense. I did visit with fiscal court to see if they could possibly lend us some help, or lend us their equipment, or help us with excavating or leveling things off. And that is a possibility. We need to save money on the project. I'm guessing that it's going to take a lot more time though if we rely on them than if we hire somebody to come in and do it. So any thoughts on the project? I mean, on the excavation part?
I think it sounds awesome. The pavilion, option 1, if you're going to do a playground, I would say pavilion closest to the playground, as a mom who sits and watches her kids on the playground.
Right.
The closer it is to the playground, the better for parents watching or keeping an eye on their kids, or even, story hours going on in pavilion or kids are playing. You kind of got an eye on both spots.
Right. And if we have to fence it off, eventually it's going to be better to, if we want to fence the whole thing, it'd be better to have it closer than not. So this is a lot more involved than I thought it would be though. It's like crazy. So, but that's what we're looking at. So I did have somebody come look and say, we could probably do a 24 by 24 pavilion with an 8-foot ceiling. This is a little bit of what that would look like. I told them, I said, I want something that is practically maintenance free. I don't want to stain it. I don't want to have to put a roof on it. It needs to be really just practical. And so they talked about putting either metal or hardboard siding on, having a ceiling in it, because then the wood beads can't get up in there. And then all of this stuff, I don't think it would have to be painted or anything like that. So at a 24 by 24, we're looking at $30,000 to $35,000. That's just a guesstimate on a pavilion that size. So we need to talk about what is our comfort level about funding this project, because it's not going to be cheap at all.
Okay, so Jeff is standing over my shoulder, and those wood beams will be eaten up by wood bees very quickly.
That's why I think we're talking about maybe a metal.
So can we put steel beams? I mean, the wood is going to rot also.
Steel carports or whatever they sell for be a lot cheaper than that.
He says maybe one of those steel carports that they sell that's all steel would probably be cheaper than building something.
We can look into that.
And they install them.
We can look into that. I didn't think about that, but that's something.
Can you not clad those wood beams with anything to keep the insects or,
Yeah, we live in a log
No,
cabin.
you can't find anything to get rid of wood bees.
no, but I'm saying if it had aluminum siding or metal or something on the outside of the post, would that deter them?
You had to make it where they couldn't get into them. It'd be hard to do.
Okay.
I can look at carport options and if we can get it, like.
I definitely think you should probably pour a pad. I mean, the concrete pad under it so you can set picnic table or whatever under there. And the metal ones maybe that are
See, like
braced in the ground.
like all of them, they're all 100% metal. See, that's a great big one for $37,000. Usually, if you have the slab poured, they come and set it all up free usually.
Right. And I think,
Here's some of that stuff.
or something. Is it Gosman's? What is it?
Yeah, Gosman's.
Gosman buildings. This one is all metal, I think. I'm not sure if the posts are, but everything on top,
Yeah, that's
all of it's metal on top. So when I quote it, or when I get quotes, I can
Maybe
add.
those are metal beams.
I don't know. Just make sure it's all is.
Maybe those aren't wood posts. Maybe they are metal. I can't really tell, but
I agree because we've had a mess, hard time keeping the bees out of our awning out front, where the carport is. It's expensive and they cause a lot of damage. So we're looking at 30 to 35,000 there, and I'm not sure if that includes the concrete pad or not. And then the playground equipment, I got one quote that came in from a vendor with a kind of a middle, about $15,000 to $17,000 playground structure with all of the border, the rubber mulch, and I had him quote 2 benches, swings, a balance beam, and stepping stones. We're dreaming big here, right? But it was over $50,000 for all of that. So I mean, I think they were high, and definitely I think we need to get more quotes. So, but with a fence and everything, I think you're looking close to $100,000 to put in a playground with a pavilion and everything and all the excavation. So, do you want me to continue to proceed and work at it, or you're like, do you want to put on the brakes and say, that's a little bit too much money? What do you want to do?
can we do it in phases where, maybe we just start with the playground equipment and then the next year do the pavilion, or where we're not spending all the money at the same time?
I've thought about that. We're gonna have to excavate to put in either one, the playground or I think the pavilion might be.
Quit.
I don't know which one would be better to do first. I will remind you that we've got a lot of money, extra money. I was just looking at it, our general account today, and if we budgeted $50,000 per month for the rest of the year, we would have an excess of $1,000 in our account.
Well, in that case,
and that still leaves us about $600,000 a year's budget for the next year to work on, just in our general account. That's not counting our savings. It's not counting our CDs.
That's not you working this project into the budget. That's just using what we have on hand. You wouldn't have to budget for it at all.
No, I mean, we've got money there, guys.
we definitely want the kids to have something nice. I mean, the library is nice to begin with. So if we've got it and you're not concerned about the budget at all, and then I would be okay with it.
Yeah, and then too, when you're bringing in an excavating team, I mean, it makes sense that they would just prepare the whole ground for everything at the same
Yeah.
time. You're not having to do it twice. And getting the water, the drainage right, and that. And you know what? If the excavation ends up being a lot more, then like you said, we put in a awning or a pavilion and seed it, and the next summer we put in a playground. So
I will,
Excuse me, go ahead, Michelle.
I was just going to say, I will put out there that if we ask a group such as LG&E, when the playground equipment got put in at Bedford Elementary School, I want to say Mr. Eddie got that. He actually got a great deal of, and it was about $30,000 for what they did get, but they worked it out. It was going to be $15,000 additional dollars to put it together and install it in one day. So we had a team from LG&E that volunteered their time, and the playground equipment company sent one engineer that we paid, like, I think they paid $1,200 for them to come and watch over the group that installed it. So what I'm saying is we can probably get volunteers as long as you have the engineer that's overseeing what's being done, to save us some money.
that is a possibility. My only concern is I know that Mr. Eddie is working on another playground,
For Milton.
and I know the fiscal court is just purchased a playground as well, or to replace an old one, I think. So we've got two playgrounds that are going in the county. So volunteers might be strapped. So, and that's another thing to consider, there's two other, I don't think that people can go to the schools though and play on the playground, can they? It's not.
No,
They're not supposed to.
What is that going to add to our liability insurance to have the playground, or is it?
It will. So I can't get a quote on liability insurance until I send them the cost of our equipment. I don't know why they can't quote liability, but they will look at all of the safety factors that we make sure that we're compliant with all the rules and standards, and then but yes, we can be held liable if somebody gets injured. That's why I think it would be good if we could lock it down, fence it off, and close it when we're not here. So, and staff members have expressed their concerns about that. It's like, I think it's a huge liability for the library, but how does the county is also liable, I'm assuming as well. They have to carry insurance on their equipment. So I talked to our insurance company and said, is there any way that we could maybe lease out the property to the county, since they already carry this type of insurance? And she said that's a possibility, but because it's your land, you could still be held liability. So then it would be you and the county that would have to deal with any lawsuits or injury claims. So it'd probably just be easier that we insure it. So, and I don't know how expensive that is. Yeah.
Will you be in the estimates for cost? Will you be including fencing and being able to lock it up where it can only be used during library hours?
Yes, I want to, we'll see how big the playground area is and get that marked off, and then I can start getting fence quotes. So. All right.
Kind of odd, but the rubber stuff that you put in the playgrounds, it is a nightmare mess that's going to be tracked into your building. Just because that's what they have at the schools, and it will go everywhere. So I don't know if that cushiony rubber, thing that you don't have to replace and maintain is I'm sure it's more expensive, but that tire stuff.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. a mess.
Yeah, it is like 3 times more expensive.
Yeah.
But we can look at it.
I wonder how much you have to maintain it, because you have to replace that tire stuff and add to it, and it fades and gets gross. And,
I've even seen like the fake grass, artificial grass.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's an option too. It's going to add a lot to your cost, though.
Yeah. Mess may be worth the cheaper cost.
True. True. Probably go through lots of vacuums, right? Turn up our vacuums and stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going with the project unless you guys are against it.
I say, if you want to get estimates for the project as a whole, and we can decide, are we willing to invest this much in it, and what, or if we need to move that budget line or what we're willing to spend on it down or
Right.
up. I think it's a great idea.
Okay. See, when I was at fiscal court, I also asked them about working with them to put in a digital branch at the county park, at the Tri-County building. And we had tried to help them get a wireless access point there back in the fall, but our vendor fell through. And this is another option that we can help, provide internet services to the county. And they approved. They're like, yeah, that would be a great idea if we could have 2 to 4 computers there, which they already have computers there. We gave them our computer carols. All it would take is to create a profile for them in the USAC portal for E-rate, like we did with Milton, and it'll just take time to make happen. It's not going to increase our internet cost by too much since they pay 80% of internet. We would just have to provide some network equipment, but adding the Milton branch to our library system added $25,000 in network equipment to our budget through E-rate. So, I mean, it's such a great deal. So I wouldn't mind working on it, and it's going to take a while. It'll take probably wouldn't get up and running until July of 2022, but it would be a great way to extend wireless access to our county. So I just need your permission to go ahead and create a memorandum of understanding document for a new Trimble County Public Library. I guess we just call it Park Branch.
I make a motion that you go ahead and do that.
Pam?
I'll second.
I don't have this page in my,
I don't either.
okay, just making sure it wasn't me.
It was added. I've done so much this last week. I attended meetings on Monday and Tuesday until real late, so this is all new stuff, so I apologize. All right, and then so back in the fall, we purchased a few items for the school for their STEM class, and we purchased 2 drones. When I was filling out our annual report for our insurance company, they asked if we had drones. I said, yeah, we have 2. Isn't that great? And then they came back and said, well, you probably need to insure your drones, and it's going to cost $400 per device, and it'll cover up to $500 in liability and damage to your property. And I thought, okay, these are kids' toys, right? So apparently no, drones are a lot more problematic than we realize. So I would like to surplus those drones and donate them to the school, and that releases us of liability, and we won't have to carry insurance on it. They both together cost less than $250. And I'd just like to gift that to the school. They can use them there and call it a wash, if you guys are okay with that, rather than spending $400 a year per device to insure it.
I'll make a motion to surplus the drones and donate them to the school.
Thank you.
I second.
Okay. Programs, we're doing great. Our programmers are working really hard. As of the end of February, we've offered over 100 adult programs with 952 people participating, and we've had over 75 children's programs with over 2,000 participants. So our programmers are working really hard, and the planning is a lot more difficult with these take and make bags. So I appreciate all they do. February was a rough month. Our visits were down. Our circulation was down. Our wireless sessions were also down, as well as our computer use at the main branch. Our wireless sessions at the Milton branch was a little down, but not too bad. Our computer sessions were very down. I'm guessing the student that was using those the computers there is back in school or no longer needing those computers. So hopefully March will be better, and we'll see a lot more people come into the library, since we're kind of through the bad spot of the pandemic. So, but that is all that I have for you guys. You guys have any questions or concerns?
I don't think so.
I know that was a lot, so I appreciate you guys hanging in there tonight. I'm excited though. We got a lot of good things happening, and we'll probably start looking at budget items next month. So going over that and budgeting for all these projects. So for next year.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 6:29.
I'll second.